Just so you know as well, I'm afraid the doorbell is within earshot. I've got a fake Christmas tree being delivered, and there's a package being collected as well.
So a fake Christmas tree to replace the one you had last year?
No, it's the one we've got is a full size fake Christmas tree, and due to different bits of furniture arriving, this is just a small fake Christmas tree.
First world problems, eh?
It is, but no, it's just going to get. Oh, that said, it's being delivered by Yodel, so the bloke's obviously just going to turn up, throw it onto the roof, and off. Right?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Wednesday the 2nd of December, and joining me on this edition are news editor Mark Hodgkinson.
For the experiment to be a success, all of the body parts must be enlarged.
Audio reviewer Ed Selley.
Hearts and kidneys are Tinker Toys. I'm talking about the central nervous system.
And assistant editor Steve Withers.
What a filthy job.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast, the first one in December. The year, where has this year gone? It's been blindingly quick, really fast. But anyway, we need to quickly get on with the podcast, and current competitions, only one running at the time of recording, and that's Close Encounters Blu-ray. It's open to active members, and it closes on the 7th of December. And Mark, tell us, previous competition winners, there are a few.
Yes, there are. 3 people won copies of The Lady Killers, and they were Crown, Simo, and JRV 902. And then there was one winner of Edward Scissorhands, who was PBH 100.
Congratulations. Well done on winning those things. So let's move along very swiftly, because it's Cyber Monday as we record this, and Friday was, of course, Black Friday. We discussed this last week and noted that Asda had withdrawn completely from the whole Black Friday thing, the one company that brought it to the UK. And then the news reports hit on Friday morning, stores opening at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and nobody was there for their sales.
I think everyone's suddenly realised 2 important factors here. One, we're British, so it's very unseemly to be seen going in and out stores that time of the morning and rushing out with Polaroid TVs under your arm. It just doesn't look good on the news. And 2, we're not American, so we haven't got Thanksgiving. So why the hell are we even bothering with Black Friday? Plus, everyone was lazy bugger and just ordered everything online. Do
you think everybody got embarrassed with themselves last year, Ed? Even those people that were fighting embarrassed themselves. They thought, not again.
Let's face it, if you've been immortalised on national news fighting over a Polaroid television, you probably want to go back home and take a long, hard look at the indifferent picture on the television you fought so hard to achieve.
Well, I mean,
and just think, just no. The thing is, it's so wholly artificial in the context of the UK retail market, and you know, the general public, don't get me wrong, as the general public, I speak as a member of the general public, we are capable of acts of limitless stupidity. But also, as a group, we can quite reliably see when something is wholly synthetic, as it is here. It has no chronological purpose in the UK scheduling. It's not a natural point where we're looking to find sales or deals. And yeah, we just we looked at manufacturers and retailers, if you like, artificially selecting what they might knock a bit of money off, and thought, do you know what, this is just pointless. And I think I don't think there was a collective decision on Thursday evening that we weren't going to turn up on Friday morning. Just a realization that it's a wholly contrived event, and that really, I mean, I don't know. I didn't pay enough attention. Did anyone see a saving purported to be part of a Black Friday deal where you thought, oh, if I had the funds, I'd do that, or if I didn't have one of those, I'd go for that? I confess I didn't see anything where I thought...
I've got to say, I didn't look at Black Friday at all because I was skint, so it's pointless looking at it because I no intentions of buying anything. I've done my Christmas shopping, as we said last week, and Steve's not buying anybody anything, so he doesn't have to do it. So there's only you and Mark, really.
I bought a doll's house.
There you go.
You?
Did you buy that online, Mark?
No, it was nothing to do with Black Friday. It was just a coincidence. There was no saving on it. Yes, I did do it online.
Whereas I bought a year's worth of of double-edged razor blades. That's not please note, that's not an emo thing. That's just because I'd run out of double-edged razor blades and I thought I'd just buy a job lot to get a discount. But that
double-edged razor blades.
I use an old school safety razor
with the brush, with the basil.
Yeah.
Badger hair, whatever it is.
Badger hair, sable, yes. There's a very long and very good thread in general chat about shaving old school. So, do you know what? The setup costs are a bit higher, but I've saved a fortune.
Setup cost might be a bit higher. I'd slash my throat if I tried to use one of those things.
I think you should try it.
It should be safer in theory.
It's a safety razor. Steve, you'd have to be a ham-handed arsehole to cut yourself on one of those things. Honestly, as I say, I am not a particularly coordinated or dexterous human being. I've been using one. I got the razor last Christmas, and the number of injuries I have sustained on it are 0. Honestly, if I can do it, trust me, everyone else can. You know, we're getting worryingly close to the whole vinyl thing here, but you get to try different razor blades, see which ones work best for you, and there's different soaps and all
different
sorts.
Razor blades. A razor blade's a razor blade, isn't it?
Do you know what? I'd like to have said so, but that's not true. That this time in early January, I bought lots and lots of different brands, like 10 of these, 5 of those, so on and so forth. And over the course of the year, I've been doing experiments and so on and so forth, trying which ones are best. And the difference between something like a Persona blade and the Gillette 7 o'clocks, and they're the ones that I've actually bought a year's worth of. Honestly, the difference in their performance out of the box, night and day. It would be easier to write a review on those than it would be on many bits of budget hi-fi equipment.
How do you know when it needs replacing? Because it hasn't got the little blue strip that you have on your normal razors.
Work on the principle that if you, like me, are not the world's hairiest human being, a single blade is good for about 3 or 4
Believer
days.
said we did November one year. November.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and even by the end of the month, you had to look really close to see.
Well, in that
if me and
case, yeah,
Steve had moustaches.
3 or 4 shaves of blade is perfectly legit. And then, as I say, I've bought 50 blades, so 10 packs of 5, and it's cost me £12.
Yeah.
So if you think about the price of that compared to like Mac 3 and all the other,
Yeah, that's what I use.
Well,
But yeah, I think it's just an extension of your your turntable obsession and vinyl obsession, Ed. All this
except that once again, in many ways, not unlike one.
Ed,
I think I'm getting higher results.
What I think is that you were born in the wrong decade.
I
think you should have been born in the 40s.
Technology as well, but there are certain things where we just take hook, line, and sinker that the replacement for doing something is better, and just go. Obviously, we got rid of the last, but it's not as simple as that. As I say, if you can put in the sort of 40-50 quid investment in the razor brush and some good soap up front, then you just make savings going forward. It's like decent clothing that lasts for years and years and years, as opposed to
like £600 jackets.
Hey, that's now 3 years in. It still looks like the day I bought it.
Is it because you're scared to wear it?
No, I wear it all the time. You can question my philosophy anytime you like, gents. The results don't lie.
I still think you should have been born in the 40s.
It definitely makes more sense.
It would, wouldn't it? Really would.
Well,
and how we got from Black Friday to that, I don't know.
At the risk of getting this back on topic, the online sales were huge, though, weren't they? Although no one could be asked to go to a store, presumably because they were actually at work and it's not a holiday in this country. Amazon had a huge day, didn't they, in terms of sales?
I think everybody did. I think everybody, online-wise, I think a lot of the sales were 300-400% higher than they were last year online. And like you say, it's not a holiday in the UK. And it was before end of the month. Those people that get paid at the end of the month and those people that get paid in the middle of the month have probably done what they need to do for the month ahead. So it's an awkward time in the month as well. So, yeah, everything against it. And, of course, it's easy to sit in the office if you're at work and buy stuff online. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I made use of Cyber
I'm surprised,
Monday
Ed, you don't like going out and meeting people and having to do with fellow human beings. So that would suit you, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, but that said, a good retail experience is something I like very much. There's just not very many of them these days. I mean, I was charged by my wife to go out and have a look at buying a new bed for the spare bedroom on Saturday. What I did discover is that furniture stores are like those child activity centres that you pay to visit, but they're free. That's brilliant. You just basically unleash. Oh, my son had a whale of a time. He got to open and close every drawer on every display stand, try out different chairs and beds, and try and use the computers that the staff had left unlocked. He was having a whale of a time, and I didn't have to pay a penny for it. That's brilliant.
So, do you have any of those electric ones that go up and down?
They did.
Get him on one of those.
He
that is a proper ride. They should charge for that.
He hasn't figured those out yet, but yeah. He had a whale of a time. But I mean, no, that was having furniture stores and stuff. I mean, they had all sorts of Black Friday stuff on. It was all, they were massively discounting stuff that was already dreadful. So surprisingly enough, I didn't feel compelled to buy any.
I wonder if DFS has a Black Friday sale as part
How
of
would
their
you
sale.
tell?
Sale. I don't know.
But no, as I say, I have no problem with a decent sale bargain on principle. But I mean, I made use of Cyber Monday last year when I bought my phone because they had £100 off with no effort to myself other than using a website. That was ideal. But otherwise, it was just pretty much, just looking at it, it's all just by the numbers, discounting stuff I didn't want to buy anyway.
I mean, Thanksgiving Thursday, and it was Thanksgiving here because finally I could order BT Infinity. I've only been waiting for it for 5 years. They've only been laying the cables for the last 2 years, and it suddenly popped up as I only checked it on the offhand as well. I checked to see if it was it, and bang, popped up, you can order this. So in a week's time, Steve, I'll have 79 down and 20 up. Just thought I'd tell you that.
Thanks.
So you'll be the only one, Steve, with a really bad internet connection.
Let's all mock Steve as he waits around for his 4K Blu-ray. Jane Austen sauntering past his front door.
Yeah, and she's not a looker either.
Right?
Anyway, that was Black Friday. For stores, you got to feel sorry for them, especially the staff. They opened up at 5 a.m. expecting a rush of customers. It just didn't happen. But online, been a big success, and like we say, it's easier to sit in the office when you're at work and order things online. And I've got to say, lots of stuff on the forums in terms of if you want to go and look for the bargains. It's running all week. This week, there's a link at the top. I think it's the top of every page that will take you to some of the bargains. I've got to say, I don't know if you do this. I know you don't, Steve, because you just buy discs left, right and centre, but I was looking at the Blu-rays thinking, oh, that's only £6, I could buy that, and then I was thinking, I'm only going to watch it the once. I might wait and it coming to streaming.
It's a slippery slope, Phil. The beginning of the end.
So when you start looking at it in that way, valuing it per watch, then streaming just becomes very attractive.
It's not like me to do that, but I did do that. And while we're talking about streaming, I did catch up with that series that we were talking about. Was it last week we talked about TV series or the week before?
Yeah, week before.
So I did start watching Mr. Robot. First episode, very Fight Club in setup. He's a schizo. He talks to the camera. Well, he doesn't talk to the camera, but he has a narration for you. And I've got to say, I haven't stopped thinking about it since I watched it. So it's got me hooked. I'm going to have to go and watch episode 2. Sound design was fantastic as well, really good. And I watched it on the Sony 4K projector, so obviously upscaled from an Amazon Fire TV. And detail-wise, cracking. Really, really good. Obviously, it was filmed on 4K cameras, I think. So,
well, in a week's time, I might be able to watch it in 4K.
It's not on Amazon in 4K, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it's just
some things are, though, aren't they?
It's 1080p, that one, I think.
Yeah. But you could tell that it's obviously been captured with a higher resolution device because the detail was and Christian Slater in it as well, was really good. So yeah, I'm gonna keep watching that. Anyway, let's talk about some hardware, and we've been talking about them for a few weeks now. That's Hisense coming to the UK market. We've finally got our first review sample through that landed with you, Mark. It's the K321. It's really well priced as well, $499 for the 55. Is that correct?
It's not. It's $699 for the 55, $499. You can get the 50 for $470 at the minute.
Right.
So actually, the way things stand, with it being the end of the year for the other manufacturers, it's not all that cheap. When you look at the XT910 as an example, where that is significantly cheaper than the competition. This one's just a little bit below, probably like £50 below the equivalent Sony or Panasonic.
At that point of the market, there's only so much you can cut, really, isn't there?
Well, absolutely,
some money on your TV.
Absolutely. You're not going to come in trying to make a loss from the off, are you? So I think it'd be interesting if they start sort of synchronizing release with the other manufacturers more around April time. I think you'll start to see the benefits then rather than now in terms of price. It's a decent set. It's got 4 HDMI 2.0 inputs. It's got 3 USB ports with version 3, which is good for 4K playback. It's got a decent selection of apps. So you've got YouTube, BBC iPlayer, Netflix, of the headlining apps. Netflix is 4K. Amazon's coming with a software update. It says on the Hisense website that it's coming before the end of November, so they better hurry up. But that'll appear soon. It's got its own app store with the usual tap. Mostly, yeah. You know the sort of thing. If you've been in the any third party app store, it's normally just filled with rubbish. Puts out a decent picture in theatre mode. It's a bit dark by default. Really, I've not measured it yet, but I sense the gamma was going to be approaching 2.5.
You can sense it, could you?
You can say, well, I can see it. It's really dark and
Jedi calibrators.
Yeah. I had to tinker with the just basically with the color and the contrast settings just to get it to a suitable image for a standard living room. It's got 2.10-point white balance controls. I can't tell you if they work or not yet. I'll tell you tomorrow. CMS controls as well.
You're not going to tell the listener.
I can tell them tomorrow.
I'll tell you lot. I'm not telling them. I'll tell them in the review. You can wait for the review. It'll be out soon. There is one thing I've noticed, and I've yet to get to the bottom of it. Occasionally, when watching broadcast TV, the picture goes kind of fuzzy. So it just goes just for half a second, maybe a second. Often when it's panning vertically. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a 50 hertz problem. We always need one of those. So there's something there. It's probably a native 60 hertz panel, and there seems to be some slight issue. And now I can't work out. This is only through the TiVo I've noticed it. The TiVo has a setting where you can pass 1080p 25, and some broadcasters use that. BBC mostly, I believe. Most of it's 1080i 50. I'm thinking maybe it's with the 1080p 25. I'll have to look into it a bit more.
Is it a 50 hertz panel that they're using?
I think they're normally native 60 hertz, aren't they?
Right. Okay.
So I sense there's something there. So there's a fuzziness.
A sense of disturbance in the force.
A sense of disturbance in the 50 hertz. Yeah, it's okay. The dark screen uniformity is good. Decent black levels. It's a VA panel.
It's lit or direct?
Well, it says Edge on the website, but there's LEDs clearly all around in the back of it, so it's backlit quite clearly. Yeah, not so good on bright screens. Dirty screen effect. Some noticeable panel banding, particularly when you're watching the football. So it's
vertical pans. That's on horizontal pans. Sorry,
horizontal pans. You get
football pitches.
Yeah, football pitches, bright greens. It really shows it up. It's a decent TV, but it's showing its budget origins, I would say, in some ways, in terms of the picture, not in terms of the feature set, connectivity. That's all good, but there's a better picture to be had for probably about 50 quid more, in terms of out of the box anyway.
Right. Okay. And of course, this is uncalibrated, so this is out of the box that we're
we're talking totally out. I'm going to calibrate it this evening, actually. So we'll see what difference that makes.
And you'll tell us tomorrow.
I'll tell you, and I'll tell the listeners when I want.
Okay.
Via your
probably next week.
We're still waiting on the XT910 coming through, aren't we, Steve? But we're hoping to get that before the end of this month.
Yes, should be getting that within the next week or two.
Okay, so hopefully that'll be up before CES, and I know it's
Crimbo, definitely.
Sorry?
Before Crimbo, definitely.
Crimbo's an irrelevance. The next big thing, Star Wars, and then after that, it's CES. Isn't it? I'll have my turkey dinner on Christmas Day. So that's the Hisense K321. We should have the review, Friday this week, Mark?
Oh, yeah, before that.
Okay, so listen to this podcast. Go and have a look. It might be on the homepage now. You might be missing out. Obviously, listen to the rest of the podcast first before you do that, but you can go and check and see if the review's there. Another big review at the moment is the JVC X5000 projector. You've got this in, Steve. It arrived with you last week. I just know that you've spent all weekend playing with it because you just can't help yourself, can you?
No.
And I'm sure that the other half
projector's not bad either.
Well, I was just about to say I'm sure the other half want you to go out and do stuff, but no, you'll have stayed in and played.
It was really crap weather this weekend, so it gave me an excuse to stay in.
Right, so have you calibrated it yet?
I have, yes. Out of the box, very accurate out of the box, quite impressive. Interestingly, I set it up when it first arrived. I did a basic setup, and it's pretty much the same as the previous generation. There are a few differences, but the basic layout's the same as it has been for the last few generations, Phil. So I selected Cinema preset and cinema color space, 6,500 Kelvin for the color temperature, and a 2.4 gamma. Did that out of the box. And then when I got around to measuring it yesterday, it was interesting that the cinema color gamut is actually basically its native wide color gamut. In fact, I used the standard color gamut, and that was the one that actually measures closest to Rec 709. So in fact, that was interesting that was kind of counterintuitive to what I was expecting. I thought it would be the other way around.
No, it's always been the case that standard's 709. Yeah.
Couldn't remember. I mean, I haven't seen one for 2 years, so I couldn't remember. So that was interesting. And then the gamma was tracking at 2.4 almost exactly, so that was really good news. Out of the box, the grayscale pretty accurate. There's a little bit of green in the middle of the image, but not noticeably so. And as I said, the standard color gamut was hitting Rec 79 very closely. So that was impressive. I mean, if you're not going to get it calibrated, although I would suggest that if you're going to spend like nearly £3,999 on a projector, but if you're not going to, that's pretty accurate out of the box. And that's after I'd only put about 10 hours on the bulb at that point, because I've been running it over the weekend and watching things, but I'll do it again. But I certainly, out of the box, that was impressive. And then quickly tweaked the grayscale with the 2-point control. That didn't take very long, got that nice and accurate. All the errors were below 1. And then did the colour management system, they've dropped orange this year, Phil. I don't know if you noticed that.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, that's gone. Hey. So it's just red, green, blue, cyan, yellow, magenta. And again, tweaked that in, and it was nice and accurate. Basically, a reference performance in both terms of grayscale and color gamut. The actual color gamut in the cinema mode measures 83% of DCI for those that are interested. And
that's the native on that
that's
panel.
Native color gamut, basically. It's 83% of DCI. Whereas apparently the X7000 and 9000 should be DCI.
Yeah, we'll wait and see.
We'll find out when you get it, yeah.
Well, hopefully that'll be landing round about the 10th, I think they said. So they're trying to fast track that one through for review. And I've got to point out that these are production. This is why it's taking so long for us to review these. We won't do pre-pros. We wanted production stock, which is why it's taken so long to hit them. But that one's with you now. We're waiting on the 7000. And the big thing here with the JVCs, obviously I've got the Sony 4K in at the minute, the 520, the VW520. Cracking projector. But in terms of colour gamut, it only goes slightly more than 709. And I'm talking about just an oversaturation, really. 9 major. The advantage the JVCs are going to have, by the looks of it, is wider colour gamut, and they're all HDR, whereas this Sony is the only one in the lineup that's HDR, and it costs £8,500.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunately not in a position to test the HDR on this X5000 because I've got no way of feeding it into the projector. The stuff I have got is on USB sticks, basically. What I have got, though, is a new pattern generator, Meridio Fresco 6G, which does allow me to run just about anything I like through the... so I tested the X5000 by feeding it various different 4K resolutions, 1080p resolutions, different color spaces, different... it does full... basically, it's got HDMI 2.0A inputs, and as you said, Phil, it supports HDR, and I can confirm that it could accept anything I put through it, and it does a full 18 gigabytes per second. So it's a full-fat HDMI 2.0A input, which is good news. And the £8,500 Sony doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's obviously brighter than the previous generations. Even out of the box, I thought, that's quite bright. I know it's a new bulb, but it's clearly brighter. And I think the X7000 is a little bit brighter still. But otherwise, there's a few little new features in there. There's a thing called de-blurring. I've put it on and off, and I'm not really sure I can tell the difference at the moment. I'm thinking, what does that look like? In terms of performance, the X5000 is what I'd expect from a JVC projector. It's got great blacks. There are the features they've added in recent generations, like a dynamic iris. There's this new de-blurring feature. There's, of course, the E-shift and the usual more detailed MPC controls. But I think I'll save the rest of my comments for the actual review, which will be up very soon. Right, so that's the JVC X5000. The review will be live when, Steve? Later this week. So again, if you're listening to the podcast, it might already be there. Go and have a look. Ed.
Yes.
Adele. She's sold millions of copies of her new album. Is physical media dead amongst lonely, sad women?
Well, for starters, I think we probably need to widen the net beyond Lonely Sad Women, if I'm honest. I'm not going to make any bones about it. This album is not really my cup of tea. But do you know what? I'm adult enough to, if other people are enjoying it, good on them. But in all seriousness, the numbers are truly something. In terms of sales across the what we might regard as standard downloads are all pretty good. But what was the number you had earlier, Mr. Withers, for CDs?
Well, if you sold 800,000 and 250,000 of those were digital downloads, that means it's 550,000 CDs.
Or 545,000 CDs, and then there will, joking aside, there'll be some. I imagine it'll probably put some serious numbers in on vinyl as well. There is a vinyl release,
oh, yeah, of course.
People have been saying that that's pretty good. This is an interesting, if you like, counterpoint to what I was saying a couple of weeks ago on the podcast about how bands and artists can make money in these situations in the modern climate. Adele is, if you like, one of the last artists going where, if you like, the old model still functions for her. She doesn't tour desperately often. There are reasons for that. She, by her own admission, her voice doesn't hold up terribly well to sustain touring, and she's not a huge fan of it as an action anyway. But instead of constantly keeping herself in the public eye by releasing EPs and singles and rejigs and sessions and all the rest of it, it's an album every couple of years with a tour attached. Nothing more than that. And it does mean that it becomes seen as an event. If you're a big enough artist and you leave a big enough impression after the last album, people will go crazy when you release something, each time after an interval of some years. I have to say, I think most sane people thought that this 25 album was going to be quite a big deal. I don't necessarily know if anyone had it pegged to be quite the sales phenomenon that it's turning out to be. It helps that, as I understand it, it's not a bad album. I've heard the Hello song several hundred times because many of my wife's pupils have suddenly developed the overwhelming urge to learn how to sing it. But the rest of it, the album is a bit of an unknown to me. But it's impressive that, as you like, this is perhaps the last flowering of old school music label and artist sort of clout. As I say, if you look at Adele's catalogue, it's just, there's nothing like the sort of constant flow of stuff that you see, even from quite large artists. It's an album every now and again, and it just goes bananas when we do. And
I think I read something, Ed, that it's outsold everything else in the top 75 twice put together.
Yes. And that sort of rams it home that you are big enough. All of this stuff about music now being that there are no means of it being a sort of successful, high-paying undertaking, or it's all completely irrelevant. If you are one of these tiny clutch of real global superstars, people will go out there and buy music in large amounts. And I don't think, again, there's no easy way of breaking down these numbers, but I don't think, again, it will be as simple as saying, obviously all of the CD sales are to people over 35. I can't see that being quite so clear cut and as simple to break down as that.
So what does it say about the marketplace? Is this the last hurrah for physical media then, do you think?
I think that we're going to see, as I say, a small group of elites artists continuing to really blow the numbers wide open across all categories, and that includes physical media. I don't think it has. If you are a struggling band, trying to get signed for the first time, I don't think that there are many lessons that you can draw from Adele. There's just a degree of, if you are a sound of a moment, a sound of an era, then you might find that this happens to you. But there's no rhyme or reason why it sort of goes this way. I'm not damning Adele with faint praise here. She's bloody good at what she does, but she's not specifically more talented than a number of other singer-songwriters plying their trade at this moment. She has just captured the public imagination in a way that these other ones haven't. We're going to see this strata of artists continue to defy all sort of sound calculations, or all sort of as we understand them, and all the judgments that we're making about the industry as a whole. And then everyone else is going to have to sort of, I think, continue to adapt and evolve and do more in the way of sort of direct relationship to fans and the like, and hope that maybe they get a shot at global stardom through good luck.
And of course, from our point of view, how well produced is this album?
Again, I haven't really listened to it, but none of the others have been bad. I mean, none of them are standout works of art in terms of how they're recorded, but generally speaking, they're all quite listenable. And from a multi-channel perspective, the Blu-ray that accompanied her last tour, that was a well engineered piece of music.
Yeah, but I never wanted to hear that. I didn't want to hear that ever again. Never again.
Not after the Gadget Show.
Not after the Gadget Show.
Well, no, obviously this is the problem with a number of things and so on and so forth. But if you didn't have to spend a long weekend trapped in the same room,
a week.
Okay, whatever. It's still quite well sorted.
That's. I've still got the scars from that.
I mean, obviously, if you're coasting around for a multi-channel music Blu-ray at the moment, then you'd be stupid to overlook the new Roger Waters one.
It's awesome.
That is quite something as a performance piece of showmanship and all the rest of it.
Obviously, it was Dolby Atmos soundtrack for that one. I believe that's the first concert footage that's actually been mixed in Dolby Atmos. I know there's lots of Aura 3D, but
yeah, it is.
Yeah. And what was it like, Steve?
It's awesome. It's incredible. I mean, it's as close. I mean, Roger Waters and to Pink Floyd as well have experimented with multi-channel sound for a long time. They were using it in their live shows in the early 70s, and they've obviously did quadraphonic mixes in the 70s as well. So he understands, I think, how best to utilize it. And because the Wall show was filmed and released at the cinema as a film, albeit for only one day, he's gone the whole hog and done a full Atmos mix, and it is superb. I mean, it's as close as you're going to get to being at that concert without actually being at that concert. And there's also lots of effects within the show that really lend themselves to Atmos, because there are things that, I mean, there's a plane that flies over your head and crashes onto the stage at one point. So that literally, the sound goes over your head. It's fantastic. Really, really good. It's a beautiful. I'm sure Ed will agree that some live recordings are better than others. This is brilliantly recorded live.
So, I understand the effects that are added in, such as a plane and so on. But if it's music, and obviously we've sat in with people who produce stuff in immersive audio and all that, and they always say that you get very little from above you in terms of reflections and so on. So what's actually above you in the Atmos mix?
I mean, like I said, the live show itself has a lot of effects within it.
Quite a lot of narration as well, isn't there?
There's lots of, there's the music itself, which obviously is more of a surround experience, mostly across the front soundstage. Like I said, he does mix in music at the sides and rear in his shows, live shows as well. So the show itself is in surround effectively. So it replicates that. You've also got the immersive sense of the audience around you. And then you've got all the various effects, say like fireworks blowing off above you, cannons going off, explosions, planes flying, helicopters going on at the beginning of the Wall Part 2. One of the, which one is it? Best Days of Our Lives.
I can't
that
remember.
one with the helicopters flying around, and when he goes, you behind the bike sheds. That sounds really good. I mean, and there's also it's also intercut with sequences where he's actually at various graveyards in Europe, and again there's some nice atmospheric sounds of which really juxtapose all the chaos of the live show with these quiet moments in these graveyards in Europe. I think it's brilliant.
I think it's important that where I think this is a bit of an oddity, Phil, is that from the very beginnings of how the Wall was envisaged, it was always going to be, as well as there being a band on stage, it was always going to be about lots of other sound effects and so on and so forth. I completely agree with you that an acid test that we've still really yet to see for an object based around recording is a non bells and whistles live recording. As I say, I'd still love someone playing full-size grand piano in a normal-sized room recorded as an Atmos mix. So all it's recorded is the piano should be at the front, as you would expect, no stupidity, and all I want is reverb and echo in every other channel.
Well, you see, the problem becomes with immersive audio. And if you want to get into this in more detail, we've got a fantastic video with Wilfried van Balen, who invented Auro 3D, where he was talking about using the height channels, not overhead channels, because you get very little reflection coming from overhead because you don't have an ear on the top of your head. So you don't get that delay from directly above you, and that's why sometimes speakers directly above you do not work, because unless it's a direct sound, there is no reflection, no reverb. The human ear only hears up to about 30 degrees above the horizontal plane. And I've got to agree with him there, because everything that he was talking about there, turning your head on the side before you'd be able to hear the difference between a height and a normal horizontal layer, and then having to work out how the human ear could hear that from listening on the horizontal plane. And like you say, it's 30 degrees up to get that sound. So that's the reason why I was asking you, Steve, about with it being a music track, what are you actually getting from above you apart from the effects? Because you're going to get no reflection, especially if it's an outdoor show. You're not going to get any reflections of sound coming down. If you're in an arena, you're going to get slap echo and that type of thing, and you don't want to hear that. So that's why I was asking that question.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, Phil, and I totally agree. I don't think most live shows are going to lend themselves to an Atmos mix. I think this is probably an exception to the rule, really. Because as Ed said, it was conceived as a multimedia event even back in the late 70s, although it must have been an absolute bastard to put it on stage back then with synchronized projectors. I mean, now on the show he was doing back in 2010 to 2012, they used, I believe it was 22 20,000 lumen projectors to deliver that show. So that gives you, so I think this is the show he probably envisaged all those years ago, but you just physically couldn't have done it back then. The technology just didn't exist. But now he's in a position to deliver something that, and Mark was there himself, so he can speak from experience, something really quite spectacular. And I think that's what the movie manages to capture, both the images, visual images, and also the sound and the general experience, the feeling of being there at that show.
Right, so that's Adele. No, how did we go into the wall from it anyway? Physical media, is it dead? Well, obviously with big artists, I think what we're saying, Ed, is big artists like her and like some other massive bands, they're going to sell shed loads on lots of different formats.
Yeah, it goes back to, really big films. People, event films, people will go out and, they'll go and see them in the cinema, and then a number of people will then feel compelled to go for a hard copy, to avoid any unreliability, it disappearing off the ranks of streaming services and so on and so forth. It doesn't hold true that that's now the case for every album or every film. A number of them are still going to have to cope with them with the different challenges of where we are on the cusp of 2016.
Okay, cool. So that's hardware for this week. We'll be back in a sec with some movie news, which we won't because there isn't any movie news yet. I don't know why we call this movie news, because we never actually talk about movie news, do we? It should be movie reviews, shouldn't it?
Sometimes we talk about movie news. Just movies.
Oh, Christ, where have you gone, Steve?
Yeah.
Steve's gone back to the 1940s.
He's on the phone line. Who was it that did hello?
Does it sound bad?
No, it sounds all right now. You
sounds all right now.
Shocked just now.
Anyway, once Steve's back in the 21st century, we'll be back with movie reviews. So, what's at the Steve cinema?
You're having trouble today, aren't you, Phil?
What's at the cinema, Steve?
We got the new film from Steven Spielberg, Bridge of Spies, which is his first film since Lincoln back in 2012. So it's 3 years since he's made a film. So always a pleasure to have a new Spielberg movie. And as you expect from a Spielberg film, it's constantly well made. He couldn't make a bad movie, I don't think, maybe exception of Hook. He's always full of his directorial flourishes. That's fantastic. It's a very well made movie. And interestingly, John Williams didn't score it. I think it's the first film since The Colour Purple that hasn't been scored by John Williams, Spielberg film, because unfortunately he was not well at the time and he couldn't do it. So Thomas Newman scores it. Which you can pretty much instantly tell. Sounds really like Thomas Newman's score. But he scores it. Otherwise, there's the usual collaborators. And he's got Tom Hanks back on board for their fourth collaboration. Here Hanks is playing an American lawyer who gets brought in initially to defend a Russian spy, and then later to negotiate an exchange of that spy for Francis Gary Powers, who obviously got shot down in his U-turn with Russia, and then there was a spy exchange between East and West Berlin, and that's the basic premise of the film. And Hanks is fantastic in it. He could play an everyman better than anyone, and Mark Rylance is really, really good as the Russian spy. The performances are great. The filmmaking itself is excellent, but if I'm being horribly honest here, it's a bit boring. I mean, not much really happens. There's very little tension because you just know, you think like, Tom Hanks is going to succeed, obviously. You don't feel any real tension or danger attached to it. You kind of, if you have any memories of history, you'll know roughly what happens. And even if you don't, you're going to have a good idea what's going to happen. So everything's really, there's no surprises in there at all. It's really about the performances. And I don't think it's a big enough story to carry that on its own. Interesting, it was written by the Coen brothers, and really, apart from a couple of scenes where you think, that sounds like the Coens, it could be written by anyone. It doesn't feel like a Coen screenplay. I was a little bit disappointed in the end. I just felt like, it was okay.
Do you think he's at the stage of life now where he thinks he should be making righteous stuff like Lincoln and like this, where it's talky thriller without the thrills?
Well, I mean, it's being pitched as a thriller, but it's not. There's nothing thrilling about it. It's basically a drama. It's a character piece between two men, their relationship, and that's what it's about. It's about the acting, and it is. It's basically guys in rooms talking, as Lincoln was too. I mean, Lincoln, distinct lack of any Civil War action, which very much disappointed me, and it was just guys sitting around talking. And at the end of the day, I mean, it was.
There's no future in that, is there? It's just four guys sat in a room.
Four guys sitting around talking. It would be easy to keep it to an hour, though. This is
no Civil War here.
I just felt like, it's like, now he's getting into his 60s. He's just felt, I should make worthy films. No, put a dinosaur in there, or at least a car chase, something,
I mean, the problem is, in all seriousness, and I think we've said this, in the past, I think Schindler's List changed him as a filmmaker, as a human being. I think it really affected him. And you look at his content since then, you look at the projects that he's done since then, and apart from the horrendous Indiana Jones, everything else seems to be really not really Spielberg. If that makes sense, if you know where I'm coming from with that.
There's a distinct lack of wonderment to
Yes,
it.
that's it. Yeah, totally.
I mean, didn't he do Munich as well?
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Munich could be the new pictorial definition of worthy, but I've seen it once, and that would have been many, many years ago. I still don't have the slightest desire to watch it ever again.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of, yes, I it would be nice if it is some sort of sense of perceived responsibility to be, telling deeply worthy stories, to intersperse it with something a bit more fun. But maybe he just doesn't feel he's got any fun left in him, which would be tragic. But I suppose not outside the realms of possibility.
Talk about coincidences, right? We're sitting talking about this. We're recording this on Monday. It goes out on a Wednesday. We're sitting talking about this. I've got TweetDeck open at the moment, which I use for breaking news, that kind of thing. And lo and behold, Sky News have just posted on Twitter, Steven Spielberg would love to make 5th Indiana Jones film before Harrison Ford turns 80.
That sounds like a Daily Match headline.
No, in all seriousness, that has just popped. In fact, I'm going to retweet it now so you can check that I am not telling a lie here.
He said, would like to make New Jones if we have a decent script.
Well,
the last one stank to high heaven.
Well, hopefully now that Lucas has actually retired,
there
might be a good chance of that.
I'm sure there must be a really good story behind the scenes about the making of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because I don't think Spielberg has it in him to make a film that bad unless he was just doing whatever he's doing, trying to make his friend happy.
You were about to say his fat friend.
No. I can honestly believe without a shadow of a doubt that Spielberg could churn out a turkey that bad, but that Lucas could turn out a turkey that bad, but not Spielberg.
Yeah.
Even Hook, which by his own admission, I think he was being interviewed and he said he quite fancies watching Hook again to see if there's anything about it that he likes.
So he's in 1941 as well, though.
Yeah.
Because, that's
all right.
It's not a good film, though, is it?
At the
let's
time it
separate the
came
fact
out,
that
it was
it's
notorious.
partially saved by some people turning in some quite brilliant performances.
Yeah, but I think, Ed,
but it's not a good film.
But Ed, I think the fact that we're sitting here and we're talking about 2 films or maybe 3 films that were complete turkeys in this guy's repertoire.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
no,
the man's track record is absolutely astounding, but I don't want for a second to contest that. So I just felt that it was worth pointing out that 1941 is another film where I was left there going, I haven't felt compelled to watch that in some time.
Well, I was just going to say that there are a couple of films that we've already mentioned which you wouldn't watch again that he's made, and they are fantastically well technically made films, like Munich, like Schindler's List. I mean, for Schindler's List, and to a certain extent Saving Private Ryan as well, after 20 minutes it's pretty much Hollywood hokum, but the first 20 minutes of that film, they should be shown to kids, and I'm not talking about young kids, I'm talking about like high school age kids. They should be shown those types of films in context, because they're so technically well made, but also because they are just they cover a period in history that people want, don't want to have to keep going over it. And something like Schindler's, I watched it once, I'll never watch it ever again. There's no need to ever watch it again. But I think it's certainly around that period where he was making, and you got to think about how weird it was, because he was making Jurassic Park and Schindler's List at the same time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, they made back to back. So
back to back.
in the same year, he released the 2 very different films.
I mean,
I don't know,
totally different films.
I will at some stage probably have to watch Schindler's List with my son, and he'll go around and go, "Isn't that the bloke who's in all the Taken films?"
Yeah, unfortunately there is
It's like,
that.
Liam Neeson. It's like he used to be great, and then he got like someone hit him really hard on the head, and now he only does like weird action films. Yeah, it's one of those things.
I watched Schindler's List for the second time. So I saw it at the cinema when it came out. Was that in '93? And then I watched it when the Blu-ray came out. Remember, we interviewed the guy from Universal, Phil.
Yeah.
And I watched it in preparation for that.
Yeah.
A lot less jokes than I remember the first time round. I've got to say, it was really grim. It's a grim film. It's not something that's going to stand up to repeat viewing, I think. Whereas I can watch Private Ryan over and over again, because even though the first time is quite grueling, after that it's more of a fun, war film. But
Withers loves death.
but the thing about Bridge of Spies I found interesting is yes, it was worthy, yes, it was well made, yes, the performances are great, but it wasn't very interesting. And yet I know from reading about it afterwards, reading around the subject, there's a really interesting story in there, but it just wasn't the one that was being told. For example, there's a lot of, at the very beginning, when they first arrest this spy, there's a bit of they show a bit of the craft work involved with spying, how they secrete notes inside little, hollow coins and sort of stuff. There's no explanation about why he was caught or anything like that. He's just arrested at the very beginning of the film, and then it's the court case. How he got arrested in reality, and all those kind of things, that actually is really interesting. And then they sort of appoint Tom Hanks as his lawyer. And you're thinking, well, he's an insurance lawyer. Why are you appointing an insurance lawyer to defend a spy? But what they don't mention is that Tom Hanks' character was in the OSS during World War II, which is the precursor to the CIA. He was well known to the intelligence agency, and he'd been one of the prosecutors in the Nuremberg war crimes trials. So, he wasn't just an insurance lawyer at all, and in fact would have been the ideal person to pick. And then for when he's in Berlin, and he lots of meetings with Russians and East Germans and this sort of stuff. That element of it, he seems very cool under pressure, because obviously he would have been quite cool under pressure because he'd been in World War II as a spy, basically. So he would have known exactly what he was doing. And that wasn't really put across in the film. I suppose the idea of making it more tense, that you'd be worried about Tom Hanks' everyman character, but in actual fact, because he did appear quite cool under pressure and there was no real tension or danger anyway, that didn't really work. It would be more interesting if you just said that from the beginning, that he knew what he was doing to a certain extent. It could have done with a bit more spying and a lot less talking, I think.
So your score?
6 out of 10. I agree with Laura. 6 out of 10.
Well, you're not going to disagree with that, are you? You're not going to have a domestic over it, are you? Really? Okay, so what's opening at the cinema this week? I noticed it's Victor Frankenstein. This has got me intrigued because I've heard nothing about this, and I'm interested as to why Hollywood are going back to a franchise that died out in the early 50s.
Well, they keep trying. They keep trying on all the classic Gothic horror stories. I think they keep reappearing. I mean, last year was I, Frankenstein, which was pretty...
That was an absolute horror.
Stinker.
And I don't mean a horror film.
And then Dracula Unbound was this year, I think. Again, another attempt by Universal to reboot Dracula. So they keep trying because they've got it in their library, and why not? This one, I mean, and obviously, if you you've got on TV Penny Dreadful, that's got basically Dracula and Frankenstein and everyone else in it too. This is, I guess, a slightly. I'm not sure if it's meant to be comedic, but it looked kind of funny in the trailers. Slightly comedic, slightly different spin on it with James McAvoy as Frankenstein and Daniel Radcliffe as Igor. So it looks like it might be quite good fun in the trailers. I'm going to go and see it. I think it'll be okay. I like a bit of gothic horror. And the pair of them sold it quite well on Graham Norton on Friday night. So I think I'll go and check it out. What is interesting is this comes out on Friday, so that's the 4th of December. That's the last cinema release, big cinema film release until Boxing Day, apart from one. Everyone's basically just decided to live the whole worldwide box office to Disney and Star Wars.
I mean, you still have the 11th to open.
There's nothing opening on the 11th.
Nothing opening.
No one is opening anything big the week before Star Wars opens because you're going to get murdered.
Have you seen did you see the Thanksgiving trailer that went out?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, man. It looks great. It really does. It looks... Oh, I was like a 5-year-old watching that. It was the Imperial March at the start. Oh, fantastic.
Yes, it's looking good. So, yeah, basically, Victor Frankenstein opens on Friday, and then the next big film is In the Heart of the Ocean, or Heart of the Sea, whichever it is, the one about Moby Dick that opens, the new Ron Howard film, which opens on Boxing Day.
I've heard nothing about that.
It's kind of crept up on us a bit, as is this one, in fact. I mean, some films have obviously had more promotion than others, but I just love the way that every other studio basically said, yep, all yours, Disney. We're not even going to try and compete with you. So,
yeah, well,
they have to start counting the cash they're going to make, basically.
Yeah, it's always going to be the case, wasn't it? But it's I keep saying I'm not going to watch the next TV spot, and I think there's been about 10 TV spots now. Yeah, I mean, every now and again you get a sneak peek of something new, and it's man, that looks brilliant, and it really does. It looks absolutely superb. I can't wait.
And you've only got when this podcast goes up, it'll be 2 weeks to your birthday, Ed.
That's what I was talking about. I was talking about Ed's birthday. Right, so that's Victor Frankenstein opening this week. Blu-ray round at Ant-Man is out on Blu-ray. Kaz reviewed the Steelbook, but it's obviously picture and sound is going to be the same, even if you get the traditional Amri case version. That's on the homepage. If you want to see that, go and read that. A little bit of a sneak video that appeared on Peter Jackson's Facebook account, Steve, over the weekend, playing it for laughs about him directing a Doctor Who episode, and I think everybody cracked the same joke at the same time, saying, it'll be a 6-week thriller then, or it'll take 6 months to film, and it'll be 3 different episodes of 3 hours apiece, and he's going to have to go back to his roots on this one and direct it in Cardiff within 12 days and to a BBC budget.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking when we were talking about The Hobbit last week, and you mentioned about in the documentary sections of the new release, the extended release, he basically comes clean and says we were making it up as we went along, didn't have enough prep time, etc. And I think his reputation has been somewhat tarnished of late because Lord of the Rings, I think everyone loved Lord of the Rings. Most people loved Lord of the Rings, at least. And it was very successful and very critically and commercially successful. The Lovely Bones, not so much. In King Kong, although I enjoyed King Kong, and I think you did too, I think you could say it was a bit bloated, a bit long, a bit self-indulgent, and it didn't do as well commercially as Universal had hoped. The Lovely Bones were pretty much appalling. And then the Hobbit films came along, and they've not been that great either. So I think he personally needs to get back to his roots. He needs to get back to a lower budget. I mean, he made his name on low budget horror flicks like Brain Dead and Meet the Feebles, and he needs to get back to that. I think.
I think one of the biggest things for any director, any film editor, anybody that edits something is, even if you spent 3 days filming a scene, getting all the coverage and all the rest of it, if it's not working, if it's not telling the story, if it's not moving the action along, you have to get rid of it. You have to cut away stuff, even stuff that you might love. You might have one shot in there that's absolutely what you wanted, but if it's not telling the story, if it's not moving things along, if it's breaking the pace, you've got to get rid of it. You've got to dump it. And I think it's the one thing that he's forgotten to do, and it reared its head in King Kong, and then it's in The Hobbit. It's like, well, you could have cut this, that, and that, and made it a really slick, really fast, action-paced movie. They would have been far better narratively than it is. because narratively it's a mess because you know that they're making it up. He has to learn to cut things out and chuck them on the cutting room floor and leave them there because it's not working for the story. And I think that's his big problem is he doesn't know when to cut things, when to trim it down, and sacrifices that he needs to make to tell the story.
I think it'll be good for him working from someone else's script, having to produce something that can only be an hour long, maximum of an hour long, 12 days to shoot it in. I think it will be really good for him to get back to that kind of discipline, which clearly he's lost over the last few years, and also obviously from his perspective as a lifelong Doctor Who fan. This is a dream come true for him to actually do an episode of Doctor Who. So he's getting to fulfill a dream. But I think professionally, it'll be good for him to get some discipline back in terms of, as you say, shooting things quickly, shooting things under budget and in time, and editing it down to a nice, tight, enjoyable, action-packed hour-long episode. It'd be brilliant. So I'm actually, and obviously from the point of view of the BBC and Doctor Who, fantastic news as well because there's great publicity for them. And although has anyone been watching it apart from me? Because
no,
it's been a good series.
A number of my friends just complain vociferous about it after each episode. I mean, I do like the idea of doing an entire series of guest directors because we could really go to town on that. Get Michael Bay,
Tarantino. I'd love to see Tarantino do an episode.
David Cronenberg,
David Lynch.
Oh yeah.
Who was an art? Who's the Terrence Malick? That one would be six weeks long and have four lines of dialogue in it. Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, the possibilities are endless. I mean, let's not be timid here, BBC.
I thought it was quite funny. I mean, even though Jackson was playing it for laughs, a lot of what he was saying in that video was really true about Moffat's scripts.
Yeah, very true.
Very, very, very true. And I think that's why I lost interest in it.
He is prone to third act problems where he paints himself into a narrative corner and he's not actually clever enough to get out of it again, but he thinks he is. And quite often it's Deus Ex Machina for him to try and get out of some problem, which is just cheating. I think he crams too much in, too many. He's got a lot of good ideas, but he crams them all in without any real idea of how to get out of it again. And that's the problem with a lot of his scripts. They fall apart by the end. But still, I mean, so we've got the Sherlock special on New Year's Day, the one set in Victorian England, which would be interesting to see how that plays out. And then presumably Jackson will be doing, I don't know what they've got planned. I guess he'll be doing an episode of next year's Doctor Who season. But interesting anyway.
Is it interesting, Mark?
What, Doctor Who?
Peter Jackson doing Doctor Who.
Well, it's interesting that he's doing it. I'm just not interested in watching it. Yeah, it's interesting that he's doing it, but I probably won't watch it.
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to talk to. It's not my thing. I'm too busy watching Fast and Loud.
I thought you were going to say MasterChef.
Oh, well, that as well. But,
that's brilliant. Thanks for getting me onto that one, Ed.
It's good, isn't it?
It's superb.
Yeah, no, it's people go, you're being ridiculous television highlight of the year. I absolutely adore that program.
It's just when they set the skills test, it's like cheese on toast, and professional chefs can't do it. It's so because they all just basically freak out under the stress, don't they?
Well, I mean, no, but I was having a conversation with a friend via the magnificent medium of Facebook Messenger during the skills test. We're saying they should do 1 week where it's just a psychological one. Just they go out onto the kitchen, and it's just a solitary egg and a pan and some water. It's like you've got to boil an egg. How long have I got? 25 minutes. And then just watch them mentally just come to pieces under the length of time they're just being watched when they have to perform this single action. It would be be amusing. But in terms of skills challenges, nothing is ever. If you're bored, Steve, go and find because I think it's on YouTube in its entirety. Go and find the one with the sea urchin. It's one of the finest pieces of comedy the BBC has ever made. Just because it doesn't happen to be in a comedy programme doesn't actually detract from that. It's one of those things where very few words are said and it's still absolutely brilliantly hilarious from start to finish.
From our professional chef on the podcast, is it any good, Mark? Do you watch it?
I haven't watched it for years. It is a good programme. I think it's just on at a time when I don't watch TV, and it's not one I think to catch up with. I don't know what it is these days, but I feel under pressure by TV series. They mount up, and I want to watch them, and I just end up collapsing under the pressure. So no,
MasterChef is demanding in scheduling because it's 3 consecutive days a week.
Yeah.
And that's pretty hardcore.
That's too much.
And then that's even before we get to Knockout Week.
I did used to enjoy it. It was a good program. Yeah. Who presents it now? Is it?
These days it's Greg Wallace intermittently. Marcus Waring is the main chef.
Is it Marcus? Okay.
And in many ways, don't get me wrong, Marcus Waring, it says some more interesting things than Michelle Roux used to.
Yeah.
But I do miss Michelle Roux's face. Him and Greg Wallace used to be just kings of the facial expression. Just two bald men gurning at the camera. It was brilliant.
Yes.
With me getting my BT Infinity ad, Steve, I get 79
Stop
up.
rubbing it in.
20, 79 down and 20 up.
That's what I get up, I've got upload empty.
As part of it, I got BT TV for free for I think it was 6 months. The Entertainment Plus thing, Ed. So I'll be able to finally again watch Air Crash Investigation and
Splendid.
Catch up on stuff like that I've been missing for months because it's not been on Now TV. Nat Geo's not on there, so so I should be able to catch up with all that again. I'm getting excited now.
Excellent.
And also just been tweeted today. Just seen it pop up again. Top Gear returns May 2016. Obviously,
it's
May the
very
8th.
very interesting to see how that goes.
Say that again. May the 8th, is it?
May the 8th.
Have they even confirmed who's doing it with Chris Evans?
Not yet.
I'm assuming it's not me. I never came back to my audition video.
If I was to pick anybody, I'd probably pick Chris Harris.
I don't know. You see, Chris Harris is a truly superb driver and he can tell you lots and lots of exciting things about the car, but I don't necessarily know if he's going to be much cop at just sort of dicking about.
Well, I've seen him do a couple of things with TIFF recently. One was for 50 and one was he's the only person that's tested the P1 against the Porsche and
the Ferrari.
His video went up and it's already done 2 million. It only went up last week. But yeah, I mean he's the type of personality that would work well, I think.
Well, we'll see. Be interesting to see how it goes. But
and of course they're going to have a woman on there. And I think the only woman you could pick really would be Jodie Kidd.
Well, possible. Obviously,
although she did that thing with she did that thing on Channel 5. There was it a car show they did on Channel 5? Was it? I think I saw one of them and it was absolutely terrible. I mean, they could always get Ant Ansell or what's his face, Fuzz Townsend.
Ant Ansell has ruled himself out. Fuzz Townsend is a lovely, lovely bloke, but I don't know. It will be the same thing as he's not necessarily a carrier program style presenter. He provides sort of technical nous and
he's a sort of China character.
But by the same time, I've said this before. You need to put Ant Ansted, Fuzz Townsend, and Ed China on the same program and just give them the most impossible. Just like, right, chaps, I want you to raise and restore the Titanic in 2 weeks, and then go have a cup of tea and then just get on with it.
Oh, you'd have to add what's his face to that then? Yorkshire lad. What do you call him?
The bloke who pulls off motorcycle. Guy Martin. You'd have the four of them together to do impossible things. He's on Sunday night at half. I forget the time now, but Sunday night. It's a Vulcan thing, is it not? Or was that yesterday?
That was last.
Bollocks! I missed it.
It'll be on catch up.
Yes, on catch up.
No, it's not the same as it used to be.
I'd been waiting all week for that.
Well, you overweighted, didn't
you? Steve, who do you think will be there?
Don't know, don't care.
Fine.
Never watched Top Gear. I don't know. You've been talking for the last 5 minutes. I've got no idea what either of you have been talking about or who you've been talking about. It's just like, huh? Who are all these people I've never heard of?
Mark?
I don't particularly care either, but I reckon Jodie Kidd's a good show and another bloke who's involved with cars. I don't watch car programs. I'm not the best guy to ask.
The only reason I know that it's the 8th of May next year is because Chris Evans was on Saturday Kitchen and I was watching that on Saturday morning and he said...
Saturday Kitchen?
Criticise people for watching Top Gear. I was watching Saturday Kitchen.
Saturday
Kitchen. Doesn't that have James Martin on it?
Yes.
I hate that man. I hate him on a molecular level. But
it was quite funny though. I wasn't watching Saturday Kitchen. Laura was watching it. I just happened to be in the room. But Chris Evans just wouldn't shut up. And they were running way over on everything because he just kept talking and talking and talking. Although he forgot to actually give the correct date when they were actually broadcasting. Because he said the date they were actually filming the program on the 4th, because they're doing all the film segments at the moment, but they're actually shooting the program on the 4th of May for broadcast on the 8th of May. And James had to correct him and say, don't you mean the 8th of May?
Right.
That said, James Martin did make a good motoring program, the one where he does the Mille, ignores everyone's advice, breaks his hugely expensive Maserati and cries. Brilliant.
I think I watched that as well. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Deserved every second of it.
I loved the way he backtracked it. Oh, it was Laura that was watching it. Aye, right. Yeah, sadly, I think we've outstayed our welcome. That is the end of the AVForums podcast, but just for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
No, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Mark Hodgkinson.
No tongues.
And Ed Selley.
Perhaps I can help you with that hump.
And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark AVForums for the latest reviews, news and videos. And of course, if you give us 5 stars on iTunes, only if you enjoyed the show, mind you, we will read your name out in a future podcast. Maybe the Christmas special. I'm saying Christmas special. It's just going to be a Star Wars special, isn't it?
Yeah, let's not hide it.
I don't know. As long as we do it in the evening and I can drink, I don't care. You can talk about anything you like.
Okay, we might do that, Ed, but you've got to buy the party poppers.
All right, that's what we can do.
Okay. I'm Phil. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.